welcome to the Championship Lowdown, our first review podcast of the season after a fairly dramatic opening weekend. Lots of late goals, handballs at both ends of the pitch, which we will be discussing with Kelan, with Jonathan, with Adam. Good morning to you as we are recording Monday morning, so you will see coffees interspersed throughout the recording. I'm certain of that. We are going to start our review as we will do 6 games in focus. We will then do the other 5 quick hits. Every club will be mentioned. We're recording Monday morning, so there will be no mention of Cardiff versus Wrexham. Might put something out there after that game. But we're going to start with the last game of the weekend. We are going to start with Burnley 2, West Ham 2. Pretty dramatic game, scoring opened by Max Kilman from Jared Bowen corner. West Ham then went 2-0 up much later on in the game through Manuel Solomon after some lovely work from Kante. And then Burnley, bit of a spoiler alert, got really what they deserved from their efforts throughout. A Zian Fleming penalty after a Skulls foul, who, to be fair, had played pretty well, I think, throughout. And then Fleming from a bit of a corner scramble in the 92nd minute to make it 2-2. Jonathan, as the resident West Ham fan, how did you feel about it from more of a West Ham perspective?
Yeah, it was a game of two halves in its own essence. West Ham, Turf Moor is going to be one of the trickier away days this season as well. And it's a stretched squad. That was very evident. You looked on the bench and you saw no game changers on the bench. That's where West Ham need to still make additions. It's all well and good having a strong 11 in the Championship, but you need a strong squad if they're going to get you over the line. And that got exposed throughout the game as it went on and on. But it was a strong first half, very commanding. Max Kilman is starting to find his feet again, which he needs for confidence. And yeah, the two boys in the middle, Kante and Orford, they played very well. It was a good finish from Manuel Solomon. But from there, as West Ham seemed to like doing, they love to capitulate. I think West Ham in the Premiership last year let in the most goals after the 85th minute. And it just showed that, sadly, things haven't changed. And as you said, Ollie Skulls had a good game up until he made that foul. And from there, it just completely fell apart, really. It's a shame. But for me, it exposes weaknesses in the squad. It shows that there's still work to be done. But if you're going to walk away at the end of a season and get a point at Burnley, you're not going to say no to that point, especially with the lack of depth we had in the squad. It's frustrating because we were 2-0 up. And by then, when Solomon hit the back of the net, you should have thought, OK, we'll take this away from them now. But we just didn't. It's just typical West Ham United, unfortunately. And it rang true that nobody was shocked that it was going to happen. It's like it's always going to happen to West Ham. And fortunately for me, Zian Fleming was my choice in the draft, and he's got me 2 goals, and Manuel Solomon was in my draft, so I've got 3 goals in just one game from my draft, which is pretty handy.
Yeah, there's always a silver lining, isn't there? Yes, Golden Boot draft standings. We will do updates throughout the season. We might even add some more players to the squads. We'll see. I'm still noodling that one over. Yeah, no, I think I'd echo that. I think it started pretty well for West Ham, who were really well structured. I think Kante and Orford in the middle, in particular, had really good games. Orford, I was particularly impressed by. Doesn't seem to have many EFL minutes under his belt. A bit of a failed loan spell at Stevenage. But the way Stevenage and West Ham play football, a little bit different. I think he can be forgiven for that one. But yeah, the bench options when they came were Ward-Prowse, Diouf and Veltman. Those are the only senior players on the bench, really, apart from Areola. Yeah, there wasn't much going on. And Burnley, I think, really grew into the game. Kelan,
massively.
Yeah, from a Burnley perspective, they won't be too displeased with this as a performance because it seemed a lot more orderly than I think people were expecting.
Yeah, I think it was a very encouraging performance from Burnley. I know in the preview podcasts before the season, we were a bit worried about them and all the wholesale changes and the new manager coming in. But yeah, I thought it was a really positive display from them. And it's weird when you were talking about Zian Fleming getting a double. On another day, he probably could have got 3 or 4. I think he had about 9 shots in the game. He hit the post. And he was probably relieved that he managed to get those 2 goals in the last 10 minutes. But I think there was a lot of really positive attacking performance. I like the look of Jacob Bruun-Larsen. I thought he had quite a good game against West Ham. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think both teams just been relegated. They played quite a competitive match. They'll probably just take the point and then move on to the next match day, I reckon.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of promising performances. I think we saw again that Edwards is going to be a real problem at this level. Excellent player. I think we saw Manuel Solomon as well back in the Championship. Looks again a slight cut above. So I think we saw a lot of individual qualities on display from both sides. And I think, for me, the lesson really was West Ham coming away from things going, we just need more depth. Quite desperately. Obviously, Engels signed before the game, wasn't registered in time. Will definitely be useful from a creative perspective. I think from Burnley's perspective, I think it was just a surprise at just how many good players they just had, just knocking about, with Broja and Amdouni coming off the bench, Josh Laurent coming off the bench. Just how deep their squad already is. To be honest, we'll see who they lose. Will Amdouni be there? He's been very vocal about what he thinks about Burnley as a place before. So whether or not he'll be there, we don't know. But if he's just on the bench, that's pretty massive. And Zian Fleming as well. After the game, Hayen was talking about how he was really hoping he stays. And if he does, he'll score 20, 25 goals. He just looked excellent. Adam, anything that we're missing? Any final takeaways from West Ham Burnley?
No, I don't think so. I think it's to note that Burnley haven't now won in the league at home for over 300 days, so they do need to get that monkey off their back pretty quickly. But other than that, I think they got pretty much what they deserved at the game. I think West Ham broke the Championship signing record, didn't they, with the 22 million signing of Engels just before the game, so it remains to be seen what happens with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll be looking back on that as a good game between two top six sides, to be perfectly honest. Moving on, we have a bit of a surprise result for many. Watford beating Southampton 2-1. Watford starting really strong in this one. A bit of a Jack Stevens nightmare, allowing Equal Bravo in, who, to be fair, had a lot of work to do. Really lovely run and finish from him. There's an even better run and finish from Amin Nazbada. Really good. A bit of work from end to end, really. No one from the Southampton side fancy putting a tackle in. A lot of really good physical work from Watford throughout. Southampton did pull a goal back. Some really good interchange between Bragg and Carl Larin. A lovely sort of stabbed finish from him. And then a lot of huffing and puffing, but Watford were able to really just about see it out in the end, but without too much difficulty in the end. I think my takeaway from this one was we maybe haven't been paying quite enough attention to what Watford are up to. I don't know whether that's just me being lazy, assuming there would be a fair bit of disorganisation. They were incredibly organised and really physical and made really good use of the quick players that they have, but also the big players that they have. Really put themselves about and had a complete identity, which, when's the last time anyone said that about Watford? Overall, very impressive. Kelan, as someone who covers a fair amount of Southampton, what did you make of it from a Southampton perspective?
Yeah, I think it was. You could see how the game was going to unfold when Watford were putting in the challenges after 5 minutes to the likes of Leo Cienzia. And I think Southampton play well when they're given the ball and teams step off them. And I think they've been given a rude awakening to what the Championship might hold for them this season, because as much as you don't want to keep bringing up Spygate and the dark arts from last season, but I do think a lot of teams will play Southampton this season and want to give them a good fight and a good test because of what happened. And I was listening to the radio commentary as well, and I think one of the commentators said that the Southampton performance in the first half was ponderous, and I thought it was a really good word to sum it up, because there's a lot of neat exchanges here and there, but the amount of room that they were giving the Watford players on the counter-attack was just criminal. And Carl Larin scored, a great finish, but there just wasn't enough, I don't think, overall for Southampton to get something from the game. And as much as it was a poor performance from Southampton overall and quite lethargic almost, I think the Watford performance was a testament to how quickly the new manager's gone in there and clearly given them a good team spirit. And I think he said afterwards that the team are all together at Watford, so they might be a bit of a surprise this season, but it's only the opening day, so we'll see.
Yeah, and I think it's always the teams that tend to start quite well are the ones who are either very physical or rely on pressing quite a lot. Because you can drill that in pre-season. The passing patterns, as you mentioned, take a little bit longer. Not to take too much away from Watford, because I did think they were excellent, ran out of puff a little bit, but they're playing one of the better teams we feel in the division. Jonathan, what were your kind of thoughts coming away from it, from either a Watford or a Southampton perspective?
If you're going to start with your first game as a Watford manager, which we know is a bit of a head chopper of a position, Dionisi's got off to the perfect start. Really, Southampton were put on the back foot from the off, and they looked to be a bit taken by surprise with how much Watford came onto them. And I think that really affected them in particular. When you've got Harry the Hornet taunting your fans with the binoculars, it's going to be a long season of it as well for them. And I thought that Nabizada was absolutely tremendous all game. Like, I think it was his senior debut for Watford as well? Was that like his senior? Yeah, I thought he didn't look out of place in any way, shape or form. And his goal, stunning solo effort, just running. At one point, I thought he'd overrun it, but he tucked it beautifully underneath and put it into the back of the net. A really strong performance from Watford. And that said, if you're going to be a manager of a team that likes to notoriously sack their managers, there's no better start and way to get under it. And I think that they could make, with that level of intensity, if they can keep it up for 45 more games, I think they could make Vicarage Road a tricky place to visit this year. But for the Saints, maybe it's also the -4 points is sitting on their shoulders a little bit. They were maybe hoping to claw a bit away from towards zero after that game. So we'll see what comes with that. There must be a bit of a mental pressure there when you're starting on -4 points as well. So we'll see how that might impact the players and the squad.
Yeah, we'll see. There's a lot going on at Southampton still. I think one of my mates did say a good drinking game would be if you're watching a Southampton game, every time they mention Spygate, take a drink, you will end up hammered. But there's a lot going on there. There was some really also poor individual displays. I thought Jack Stevens was really poor, not just from the first goal, but I didn't think he had a great game. I don't think Bree got involved anywhere near enough. I think Dobbin was quite ineffective further out wide as well. So I think there was some confusing decisions, some poor performances, and even still, they were not well out of it, to be honest. I think it also exposed they probably have a little bit more work to do. I know Bragg are very good, but I think you can see that they probably do need another midfielder. And if Harwood Bellis goes, and I know Wood was on the bench, but they'll desperately need another centre-back as well. So a little bit of work for Southampton to do there. But now we are going to go to the Riverside, and we are going to talk about Lincoln's first game back in the Championship for over 60 years. We are going to throw to our resident Lincoln fan, Adam, to talk us through his thoughts on the game. Adam, it wasn't quite to be, but you must have been pretty proud of the efforts.
Yeah, good return to the Championship after 65 years. I think we definitely showed our true colours in the first half of the season, first half of the game. I think the XG was actually in Lincoln's favour. And yeah, I think the Borough side got a bit of a whip up at half time and came out. In fairness to them, all guns blazing. I think they had an XG of 1.16 in the second half against 0.42 in the first half. So they definitely had a kick up the backside. They look like they've got quality, and I guess the difference was the squad depth in the second half. Lancashire looks like a real poacher, a real goal scorer, scoring goals in the 6-yard box for both of them. But the atmosphere in the Riverside on Saturday was something to behold, and a lot of Borough fans complimenting Lincoln and saying that if we perform like that all season, then we'll be just fine. I don't see us being too much in trouble from what I saw on Saturday, but yeah, we're 45 minutes into a season, or 90 minutes into a season, sorry, that is very long. But yeah, promising signs from the first game.
Yeah, I think Lincoln's game model, you saw how well actually it scales up from being League One champions, weirdly, to Championship potentially strugglers, because you're quite comfortable without the ball. And that's going to be quite useful. Lincoln ended up with 24% possession over the game. As you said, Middlesbrough ended up with a massive XG as they racked up the chances. Obviously, Adam Reach with a really lovely strike, wing back to wing back, to open the scoring early on. And yeah, as you said, after half time, Middlesbrough came back with a vengeance. Will Lancashire with both of the goals. The second one, particularly some really lovely work from Riley McGee, with a lovely bit of work on the touchline and putting the ball in. But like you said, Middlesbrough were able to bring on Arston, McGee, Pert Harris, Sarmiento, and then Alfie Jones later to see it out. It's a crazy amount of talent there. Lancashire, obviously, the main story. Some lovely performances from Malander and Berhalter as well. Kelan, what are we thinking about Lincoln then? Does this change how we see them, or is it most of it predicted they might even get something from this game? So maybe it just suited them.
Yeah, I remember when we were previewing the matches and we were doing the scores, I think I said Middlesbrough 2, Lincoln 1, and it was going to be a tough opening game for both teams because Lincoln weren't going to give Borough an easy ride regardless of their stacked squad. And it played out like that. And I think, as Adam said, it was a case of Lincoln did unbelievably well in that first half. Chris Cohen afterwards said that not many teams this season will go to the Riverside and give Borough the game that they gave them in that first half, because I think a lot of teams will probably give the Riverside team probably too much time and too much. They'll just be too nice to them, and Lincoln were anything but that, and it was a great goal by Adam Reach. But yeah, I think in that second half, Middlesbrough's quality shone through, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Lincoln do when they're back on their home patch, and they'll be really desperate to get a win after putting in such a great 45-minute performance. And yeah, it will be intriguing as well to see how Middlesbrough set up against teams that aren't going to be insistent on stifling them. Yeah, I thought it was a really interesting and entertaining game overall.
Yeah, and I think Middlesbrough did have to change their structure at half-time, and I think we saw Hellberg there make those adjustments that needed to be made because they were just crashing up against a rock consistently, but the quality shone out. Jonathan, any final thoughts on the opening day victory for Middlesbrough?
Middlesbrough showed their quality of their squad in depth in the end. They do have a lot of talent to bring off the bench, which for me is a real sign of a side that can do big things in the division. But I think you also have to give a lot of credit to Lincoln. I think I said in the review or the preview, I think I said Lincoln would take the lead, and they did. And as you said, it was a great finish from a player who had a really good game in Adam Reach against a Lincoln team that I think are going to see stats like that quite commonly when they're on the road. But if you can go toe-to-toe with a team like Borough, who everyone thinks is going to be at minimum top four, you can easily claw yourself out of difficult situations if you've got a team that work together like Lincoln do. And you can see there's a sort of a cohesion and a togetherness at Lincoln. And I think if they can bring that to Sincil Bank, that could be a really tricky spot for a lot of teams for Lincoln. So I think Lincoln have got to hold their heads up high. Went away with a tough defeat away at a team that should do well, especially at the Riverside. And on to the next one.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can see Lincoln taking some scalps this side of Christmas for sure, because if you are not prepared and you don't have that depth of quality to change a game, you're going to come unstuck. I think that's for sure. We are now going to go to the first game of the weekend, the one that opened up the Championship season. Wolverhampton Wanderers versus Blackburn Rovers. I believe in our preview episode, we were all pretty negative around Blackburn's chances for this game, but we were all very, very wrong. Although Wolves did open up the scoring, Manetzi with a pretty nice finish, lovely ball through from Fair Lopez, who looked to cut above the level, probably Wolves' best player on the pitch, and one of the few that came away, I think, from this game with any kind of credit. Blackburn then came back, really good header from Sean McLaughlin, who's also very good at the back. At this game, I think one thing that was quite notable was how good Blackburn were defensively versus what I think some people maybe expected from them. Really lovely cross, really lovely header, his first goal in English football as well. They then silenced Molineux with Johnson scoring from close range. Yeah, I think Blackburn do have a wealth of attacking talent for a team expected to finish further down the table. He really showed that with a lovely finish. Wolves then tried to batter down the door, and eventually a controversial penalty. I think it probably just about was inside the box. I'm sorry, Tony. And Raul Jimenez with a incredibly, I think about 5 or 6 stutters before he put it away. Yeah, this one, difficult, really, because I think we saw the quality Wolves had, but I didn't really see much of a structure. In I guess, comparison to what I saw from Burnley, which was a team that knew what they were doing, Wolves left so many gaps through the midfield, and Rovers just seemed to counter-attack quite easily, in spite of the fact that I think Wolves had a pretty good starting lineup, pretty stacked squad. Andre in central midfield should be too good for this level. They just couldn't seem to deal with what was going on, what was coming at them. And not to be too lazy or cliche, but it really looked like they weren't quite expecting the Championship. It really didn't quite look like they were ready for what was going on. And that worrying. I think their quality got them through, and I think it will. Fer Lopez, as I said, looks brilliant, but I still think there was a bit of a lack of something special, and a lot of the possession looked quite stale. Jonathan, do you want to say some positive words perhaps about Blackburn Rovers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think to go behind early at Molineux on a Friday night, when I expected Wolves to then take off even further, to then go and put the game to them, I was really impressed by Blackburn, like truly impressed. I thought Sean McLaughlin was outstanding all game long. Fantastic header as well. I also thought the lad Alabiosu, who actually gave the handball away, I thought he showed really good progressive spells up that right-hand side throughout the game. He looked a real threat. He was constantly looking to go upfield and put some dangerous balls in towards the Wolverhampton Wanderers third. I think Blackburn were really outstanding. They truly surprised me. As said, I expected when Wolves took the lead through Minetti, I thought they're going to take this away now. This will be 4-0. But they showed a real resilience and a fight. And as we've said, for a side that everyone seems to have written off early on, we all did as well. I said, I think this will be a 3-0 win for Wolves. I think Blackburn will finish, if they're lucky, 21st. I think that Tony Mowbray's come out and put out a statement with that sort of performance. But maybe it's a bit of... It could be too early to panic for Wolves. It's only the first game of the season. You start to understand a team 8 to 10 games into a league season. But I think if you're going to take an early lead against a relegation contender when you've just come down from the Prem and you let them go ahead of you and you have to get saved by a penalty in the last minutes, I don't know, there might be some cause for concern there for Wolves. But if you're going to have a picture book ending, Raul Jimenez in front of the stand that he adorned with scarves, scoring the penalty, which I agree, it was a penalty. I think it was on the chalk line. There's cause for concern there for Wolves, but Blackburn have got to walk away from that back to Ewood Park and go, that's a tremendous point, and one that could be very big and telling at the end of the season.
Absolutely. They found a lot of joy in those wide areas in particular. Alabiosu obviously backing up Morishita, who got the assist for the first one. I'm a big fan of Morishita's. I think he's an excellent player. And then Afolayan as well. Really good work from him. I think he was assisted Johnson's goal. And I think that Trippier and Mola Wolf in particular had really tough evenings. I think both came off, which says something about what was going on those wings, because they were being given a lot of trouble by Blackburn's wide players. Kelan, any other thoughts that you come away with from this game, either from Wolves or a Blackburn perspective?
Yeah, I think Wolves were just glad that they had a player of Raul Jimenez's quality from the penalty spot to have him come off the bench and score that penalty, because I think a lot of us were predicting Adam Armstrong to have a good game, and I don't think he registered a shot on target when he was on the pitch. So they would have been relieved that Jimenez, who's such a hero at Molineux, managed to step up. I know he did a lot of stutters, but he just about managed to score. Yeah, I think we talked about Burnley West Ham being a 2-2 draw that both teams will take. I think this is very much a draw that Blackburn will take. Wolves will go back, and I think they've got Preston away now in the second game, so it's not going to be another... It's going to be another difficult game against a team that might be near the bottom of the table. Yeah, I think Wolves will be in progress, and hopefully they can get a win for the Wolves fans at Preston.
And also, if I can add, Raul Jimenez did score, which was in my 6-man draft. So I've now got 4 goals on the opening weekend.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. It's a very good weekend for you goals-wise. I'll take this opportunity to... I didn't mention Will Anxious goals for me in the Lincoln game, so thank you for that, Will. Very good of you. And Jimmy J. I knew you wouldn't let me down. But you just mentioned there, Kelan, you just mentioned Preston. We should talk about Preston versus Bolton. I'll start with the positives. So I watched quite a lot of this game. Bolton obviously started incredibly fast. took advantage of some really poor Preston defending, I think, on both counts. Number one, the goalkeeping error for Dalby's, and then just whatever was going on at the back for Thierry Gale's sort of breakaway goal. Really lovely work from Bolton, but I'm not really sure what on earth was going on there. From a Preston perspective, they clearly got a bit of a rocket up at half-time, looked far better in the second half. And they should have equalised late on, I think, for sure. Not just the header that I think we've all seen on the highlights, but there was a part where Osmajic was clean through on goal and he went to square it and his pass was just awful, really poor. And then obviously Arabi's goal anyway. So Preston really, in spite of the fact I think a lot of people will be looking at that and talking about how poor Preston were on opening day, they could have come away with a win. They really could have done, and I think they can count themselves unlucky not to have got at least a point. Bolton obviously will be very happy. Their game model scaled pretty well. I think I was pleasantly surprised by some of the football they were able to play already. They have a couple of signings still on the bench, but I think overall, I think not to be too much of a wet blanket for Bolton fans, I feel like I watched two poor teams struggle it out. So if you notice any continuity errors from the podcast perspective, Jonathan just had to run out and help a gentleman with his car. But we're very much still here and back. And I was just wrapping up talking about how Bolton and Preston, I think, were two poor teams. Albeit, I think there are some positives to take for both of them. Kelan, what did you come away thinking from the game?
Yeah, I probably agree with you. I do think it was a case of two poor teams playing against each other. But I do think in the first half especially, I was quite impressed by some of Bolton's attacking play. Sam Dolby got the opener, and then it was a really nicely taken strike by Thierry Gale. He curled it past the Preston goalkeeper nicely. But watching back the second half highlights, Preston had so many chances that they spurned. Bolton put away them very nicely and confidently in that first half. But as you mentioned, that Osmajic pass where he's probably better to just have a strike on goal, but he's overthought it and then he's skewed the pass, and Joseph Arabi gets a nice header. He scored in the EFL Cup, so I think he's got 2-2 for Preston. So they can hold on to that a little bit. But yeah, Osmajic's finishing especially left a lot to be desired. But yeah, I thought overall it was a case of two teams that will probably be down there, but Bolton will be very happy that they managed to get that win in front of the tough sheet faithful, as they're called.
Indeed. I think the positives for both is the cavalry is coming. I think you saw Bolton off the bench. Ryan Hardy came on, Illing Jr. came on, Lewis Brunt came on, Kilian Dong. So a lot of their new signing are bedding in, and I think they got a good performance out of John McAtee, who didn't do too much in League One last season. With Preston, Leo Leroy came on. They've obviously just signed Harry Clark. And there is takeover talk in the air as well, which I think Preston fans will be very pleased about too. Yeah, difficult start, I think, for Preston. Bolton, some positives. It could even get a little bit better, but two potentially poorer teams, I think we're in agreement. So we'll see if they can keep it up. And our final game, which we're going to do in some detail, will be Norwich versus West Bromwich Albion. A game in which Norwich absolutely went at West Brom. You'll see in our team of the week later on that Max O'Leary had a pretty good game from a shot-stopping persuasion in particular. One he didn't actually know that much about from Moto, but really good. There was then a bit of a controversial goal from Hegerberg where he slapped it into the back of the net after some lovely work from Jimmy J. Morgan, completely on the counter against the run of play. But they keep it up, they keep defensive, they keep solid, and then a lovely individual effort from Jimmy J. Morgan makes it 2-0. Kvistgaarden off the bench finally gets one back for Norwich, certainly no less than they deserved throughout the game. They just kept knocking on the door, a bit of poor finishing, really keeping them from racking up a bit of a scoreline. They played some lovely football, but just to no avail. Shouldn't take away from a really positive display from West Brom, who were very resolute at the back. But yeah, they did look dangerous from Morgan Hegerberg and Isaac Price in particular. But yeah, really needed a big performance from Matt O'Leary. Adam, do you want to come in on this one? Give us sort of your thoughts on this game.
Yeah, I thought you could maybe put this under a real smash and grab from West Brom. I thought Norwich looked like they were, could have scored 3, 4 or 5 if it wasn't for Max O'Leary in goal. It's one of the already probably earmarked that as one of the most outstanding displays between the sticks in the Championship this season. I thought he was absolutely superb and deserved, spoiler alert, a spot in our team of the week. The goal, obviously, from Hegerberg is controversial, could be up there with one of the most controversial moments of the season, come what may. Little hand of God there and ran away like nothing had ever happened. Yeah, I don't think Norwich have a great opening day record. I read something that says they've got one of the worst in the league, and yeah, they've just continued that this weekend. So they need to get on the horse. We've all tipped them to do this season, and yeah, I think they need to get a win under their belt sooner rather than later so that they can build a solid platform to go at the second half of the season and have a real run at promotion.
Absolutely. Kelan, we must have been pleased to see Jimmy J have a good game. From a West Brom perspective, what will they be happy with?
Yeah, I think as much as had so many chances and Max O'Leary pulled off some brilliant saves, as you mentioned, the Mo Toure one, I'm not sure if he's too aware of it, but he's just in the right position to deny him with his legs. But as much as Norwich weren't firing on all cylinders in front of goal and met a formidable goalkeeper, I thought the West Brom finishing, as much as Hedgerbo's goal is controversial and all that, I thought Jimmy J Morgan's goal was fantastic, and probably it was a sucker punch to Norwich to go to 2-0. Isaac Price, I thought, had a decent game in attack. It hasn't been mentioned. I think he made the Norwich keeper do a really good save from quite far out. And then as well, from a West Brom perspective, O'Leary's probably stealing a lot of the thunder at the back, but someone like Nathaniel Phillips, who's obviously ex-Liverpool's got quite a good pedigree, I thought put in a really valiant display at the back as well. So I thought it was, for Norwich, it'll be a case of we play like that other weeks and we're not facing such a unbelievable goalkeeper display, we probably get something from the game. But I thought from a West Brom perspective, there were a lot of very positive performances away from the obvious goalkeeping one.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think Norwich will be too concerned. I think definitely some things to improve, and they are linked with a winger from, I think it's Anthony Masaba. I think I saw they are looking to improve that. Yeah, and if they can do that, they'll be well clear of trouble. And I think there were some good attacking moments from them as well, which is the other positive. Yeah, no VAR in the Championship at all, please. I'll take handball goals all day long. It should be abolished, full stop. But that's another discussion for another time. Those were the games we'll do in depth. We are now going to go through all of the rest in a slightly more orderly fashion. I will start with Charlton Athletic beating Derby County 2-1. Sammy Schmodix opened the scoring after a nice bit of work between him and Carlton Morris. He then went off with, I think, just a small sort of twinge early in the second half. But that precipitated quite the turnaround. Lloyd Jones, after signing a new contract, with a big header, making it 1-1, and then a really good finish from Tyrese Campbell, who was pretty fantastic throughout, to be fair. Easily their biggest threat. Throughout, Derby did try and push on, but just couldn't really make it stick. Yeah, Charlton were Charlton. They were physical, they were competitive, but they had a little bit of quality at the ball in from Grant to Jones and Campbell throughout. They won their duels and they made it count. And if they've got that bit of quality, they will be able to pull clear. For Derby, I don't think it was an awful performance at all. I think on another day they come away with maybe more than just a point. But ultimately just lacked a little bit really after Sammy Schmodix came off. And I think just saw that, they're going to need a few more additions, a few more exciting players, and their new signing Bolipja didn't come off the bench, which I think might have been disappointing for them. A good opening day for Charlton Athletic. Kelan, would you like to talk to me about Portsmouth's defeat against QPR?
Yeah, it was a weird one watching it back, because obviously Portsmouth took the lead through what was, you can describe it as a Terry Devlin screamer. He puts it past Pierce Charles amazingly well. But then it's strange because obviously QPR then go on and grab 3 goals in the first half to get the win, but none of their goals were of that same quality. I think a lot of the QPR goals, Elias Chair somehow snuck it in for 1-1, and then Saito gets a deflected goal that Romfoot's Nicholas Schmid, and then Elias Chair gets another one as well. And then really, I thought in spells QPR looked really slick on the ball going forward, and they managed to get a win. I think when I looked at it, I think it's only their second win at Fratton Park in 30 years, so it's clearly not the best away day for the Rs, but they've got such great attacking quality, and I think the only issue for QPR, I think we mentioned it when James was talking about the 1-24s, it's just making sure all of your best players aren't in the treatment room for too long. I think with someone like Elias Chair, you maybe forget about the quality that he can bring to the division, because last season he had a very injury-stricken campaign, but he got 2 goals and he got the assist as well. And I think when he's fit and firing, he can easily, hit double digits in goals and assists in the division. So it was it was a strange game because there was 4 goals, but I think from a QPR perspective, they'll take it because it's a rare away win for them at Fratton Park, and Portsmouth need to work on some defending for the next game.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming hot off the heels of their 6-1 win last season as well. So they've really turned it around from very unhappy to very, very happy. Yeah, certainly saw a few questions asked of John Mousinho's in-game management, which I don't see very often. Potentially just a one-off. Let's now go to Jonathan. Can you talk to me about Bristol City 0, Millwall 2? Yeah, no, absolutely. Really professional performance. I saw Kyle Ellisby was on the right-hand side for this game. Did very, very well. Slipped in Leonard, who set up Coburn, who was, I think Randall's second yellow was pulling Coburn back. They just really couldn't deal with him. For Bristol City, maybe they can write it off a little bit just because of the going down to 10 men so early. Silly from Randall, but yeah, they'll need to turn that around quickly or else it becomes a very bad start. Adam, we'll come to you to discuss Stoke's latest opening day defeat to Swansea.
Yeah, Swansea went to the Bet365 without a win there in 5 years and have come away with all 3 points. I think Ethan Galbraith got the reception that we all probably expected him to. There's some videos doing the rounds on social media that say some quite choice words about him, but Eric Bokat's first goal in English football after 60 appearances for Stoke, a deflected effort that put Stoke ahead early on. And then I think 2 teams that I've tipped in my 1-24 to do this year, but we talked around the maybe slight change in shape that Swansea might show this season with the slightly narrower wingers. And James is not with us this morning, but was there live and said that Apoku was absolutely electric. So, yeah, no surprise to see him get the equaliser. But, yeah, I think Swansea looked like the more dangerous on the whole, despite maybe Stoke starting a bit quicker in the first half. And then, after the break, I mean, we've predicted Zamba Potnik and Ross Stewart between us, but neither of us or none of us have had Adam Eder to be in the Golden Boot race. But, yeah, I think the turning point there was an outstanding save by Lawrence Vigouroux at one end, and then Swansea went up the other end, and Adam Eder, with almost his very first touch, put them ahead. But 22 shots from Swansea says that they're looking like they may be slightly more attacking in their outlook this season rather than, I mean, I've watched them live quite a bit over the last 3 or 4 years, and they were very much tick-attacker around the centre-backs into Grimes before he moved on to Coventry. But they look like they might be slightly more offensive, and we talked really highly of what Vitor Matos might do there this season. And I think to come away with a win early doors will settle them down just nicely. So, yeah, really good away day for Swansea. And I don't think Stoke can be overly disappointed with the showing that they put in and the new signings bedding in. But, yeah, Swans fans have got to be delighted.
Yep, and great scenes with Victor Matos at the end as well. It looks like quite the character. And we'll round it out with Sheffield United 0, Birmingham City 0. This was not a great game. I think Jay Stansfield had the first shot on target around the 60th minute, which kind of says everything. Very, very cagey. Bamford had a decent opportunity in the first half, but again, it really was not brilliant. Carlos Vicente pulled an Osmajic and really should have shot rather than pass. And I think, again, Bamford had a decent strike in the second half that Beadle saved. Overall, Birmingham slightly the better team, had a few more opportunities, will come away maybe slightly disappointed they weren't able to do more. Sheffield United were very resilient, really good performances from the centre-backs in particular, but really struggled to create, never looked, outside of Bamford, kind of moments never looked like they were going to make something. Chris Wilder himself saying they were still quite light in a number of areas, which they certainly looked. And that was the first weekend of the Championship. Lots and lots to talk about. There will be lots and lots to do in the transfer windows as well. Finally, our team of the week. We have got Max O'Leary in goal. We have managed to squeeze in Adelson Malander at right back, even though strictly speaking he was at centre back. We've got Lloyd Jones and McLaughlin as our centre backs. Josh Tyman at left back. We have got Seb Berhalter holding it down the middle. Really good performance. We've then gone extremely attacking. We've got Jimmy J. Morgan and Elias Chair as dual 10s. And then we've got 3 strikers. We have got Coburn, Lancashire and Fleming. Look, I can't see that anyone there didn't deserve to be in it. Maybe a shout out to Thierry Gale, for example. And that is that. If you enjoyed this week's, please do subscribe, 5-star reviews, all of the things, please. It does make a difference to us massively, and we really do appreciate it. We will be back with the preview show in the week ahead of week 2. Until then, thank you ever so much, Kelan, Jonathan, and Adam, for your time this morning. We will see you all again soon.